So today I'll be talking about the development of classroom assessment tools for measuring knowledge and reasoning. So this would comprise for week 10, 11, and 12. So learning objectives, after 30 to 40 minutes of presentation, listeners will be able to, number one, enumerate the different type of assessment tools, differentiate teacher-made tests from standardized tests, explain the steps in constructing teacher-made tests, rather, prepare a table of specification for a particular subject, present an organized test scores, enumerate the steps in constructing table of frequency distribution, distinguish between frequency polygon and histogram, differentiate difficulty index from index of discrimination, show the ease of difficulty of test items by computing the difficulty indices. So general principle of testing. So first, it measures all instructional objectives and it also covers all the learning tasks. It is also used as an appropriate test items and make tests valid and reliable, and use of tests to improve learning. We all happen to know that test is also part of reassessment, and it's also one way for us to evaluate based on our students' standing. If they were able to know or they were able to comprehend the lessons, it's very important to give them such exams so that we could do check and balancing. So, principles of high quality assessment. So, first, assessing the performance of every student is a very critical task for classroom teacher. It is important that the classroom teacher should prepare the assessment tool appropriately. That's according to Alonso of 2006. So, teachers should always be prepared. Tests should be in accordance to what was being taught to the students, and at the same time the different goals and objectives that was stated. It should be fair in giving the tests to students so that students will be able to somehow anticipate as to what was being said or what was being discussed prior to the day to the discussion of the lesson. So clarity of learning target. So when a teacher plans for his classroom instruction, the learning target should be clearly stated and must be focused on student learning objectives rather than teacher's activity. It should be a student-centered type of targets or objectives, and it should be coming from what the student should be able to gain right after it was being provided or supplemented to them. The teacher is there to facilitate. So according to Alonso of 2006, the learning outcomes must be SMART. When you say SMART, that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So appropriateness of assessment tools. So first, objective test. There could also be subjective test. We have performance assessment, portfolio assessment, oral questioning, observational technique, and self-report. So different qualities of tool assessment. There should have been validity. There should also have been reliability, fairness, objectivity, scoreability, adequacy, administrability, and practically and efficiency. And also, we also have steps in developing assessment tool. And examining the instructional objectives of the topics previously discussed is very important to be done by the teacher. The table of specification should always be constructed completely. And there should be test items that should be well constructed in relevant manner. And assemble the test items. You could also have check and assemble the test items and also write directions to guide the students and make answer keys which could guide for the teacher to check the works of the students and analyze and improve test items that we have to revisit as much as possible. So examine the instructional objectives of the topics previously discussed. So according to Gerhardt of 2006, the first step in developing an achievement test is to examine and go back to the instructional objective so that we could match with the test item to be constructed. So everything should be anchored based on the SMART objectives that you were able to have, making it sure that the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor skills of the students are also being enhanced based on the objectives of your exam and the instructional educational instructions needed that was being anchored in the previous topics. So talking about TOS or table specification, Garrison Grant of 2008 was able to mention that this is a kind of chart or table that detailed the content and level of cognitive level assessed on a test, as well as the type of emphasis of test items. And it also provides test constructor a way to ensure that the assessment is based on the intended learning outcome. The intended learning outcome should be part of whatever are the things that needs to be target, and it's very important that this should be specified and it should be well cascaded enough as to the validity, reliability, as well as the fairness of the specific exam. So preparing a table of specification, how should we do that? First is to select the learning outcome to be measured. Second, make an outline of the subject matter to be covered in the exam. Decide on the number of item per subtopic and make two weight chart as shown in those format 2 and format 3 in the table of specification and construct the test items. So, different formats of specification table. So, format 1 of the table of specification is clearly shown and is being depicted above. So, as you can see, there is the specific objective, the cognitive level, the type of test, the item numbers, and the total number of points. Table of specification should have the following content. So with a specific objective, it has solved worded problems in consecutive integers. Say, for example, this is in mathematics. Cognitive level is more into the application. The type of test is multiple choice. The total number is either 1 or 2, and it has a total of 4 points, which per item is 2 points. So, as you can see as well, specific objectives actually refers to the intended learning outcome stated in a specific instructional objective covering a particular test topic. And when you're talking about the cognitive level, this pertains into the intellectual skill or ability to correctly answer the exam or a test item using Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. So with Bloom's taxonomy, it's very important to consider the different verbs that we have to consider in constructing it, and it should always start with it. And most of the things that we have to consider are the affective, psychomotor, as well as the cognitive level. We could also consider the behavior as well as the experience of the students to be met. And types of test items, this identifies the type or kind of test a test item belongs to. An item number simply defines the question number as it appears into the test, and total points summarizes the score given to a particular test. We also have the format of table of specification. So one way table of specification, as you can see, in the columns, we have the content, the number of class session, the number of items, and you also have the cognitive level column and the test item distribution. On every specific row, there is what we have the content, no? And with regards to the content, we have the basic concept, the addition, fraction, subtraction, multiplication, and application of problem solving of the division of fraction. And the total of which is noted in the number of class session as well as the number of items, no, that is being considered during making of the exam. So say for example, the number of class session of basic concept fraction is 1. The number of items is 2. Another example is addition fraction is 1 for the number of class session and the total number of items is 2. Then we have to add it up or to sum it up. Okay. Now, for the other columns, which you have the cognitive level, this is more into the type of grading as what is being depicted. It could be the type of grade which has its equivalency, and on the other column, it is being distributed in terms of test items. So, say for example, in the basic concept function, we have 1 to 2 items, 3 to 4 for addition, 5 to 6 for subtraction, 7 to 12 for multiplication and division, so on and so forth, to make it a total of 20. Format 3 table of specification is a two-way table of specification. So as you can see, this is somewhat unique with the other two. It is being anchored into the Kraft-Walls cognitive level. So as you can see, there are different columns that it was being created. First column, we have the content and then the class session. You also have no the content of Krathwohl's cognitive level. So concept one, say for example, concept one has one class session, Z score has two session, P score two class session. Stay 9 has 3, percentile rank has 3. So probably a total item of 2 or maybe 4 or maybe 6 on that particular content. And the item distribution should correspond as to how many total items should it be given. So construct the test item. So in this section, we shall discuss the different format of objective types of test item. The step is developing objective and subjective tests and advantage and its limitations. So general guidelines for constructing test items. So number one, always begin with writing item far enough or in advance so that you will have time to revise them. It's also very important to match items to intended outcome at appropriate level of difficulty to provide valid measure of instructional objective. Be sure each item deals with an important aspect of the content area and not with trivia. Number four, be sure the problem posed is clear and it shouldn't be vague. Be sure that the item is independent with all the other items. So this is according to Macmillan of 2013 based on the general guidelines. Macmillan also added up the sixth guideline in constructing test items. Be sure that the item has one or best answer in which experts would agree. Prevent unintended clues to an answer in the statement or question. You need to avoid replication of the textbook in writing test items, so do not quote directly from the textual materials. You also have to avoid trick or catch questions in an achievement test, and try to write items that require HOTS. That's according to Macmillan. So determining the number of test items. So as you can see, there are two different columns that is shown in the table. So assessment format and the average time to answer. Say for example, if you wanted to determine the number of test items for true or false, there should be an allocated time of 30 seconds per item. Multiple choice could be a minute per item. Multiple choice of higher level of learning objectives could be 90 seconds. Short answers could be 120 seconds perhaps. Completion of 60 seconds, matching type of 30 seconds per response, short essay could be 10 to 15 minutes. No, it depends on the number of words that you would like to require. Extend essay, which is 30 minutes, and visual image, which is more into 30 seconds. So assemble the test item guidelines. So group all test items with similar format. You also have to consider to arrange the test items from easy to difficult. Space the test items for every reading. Keep items and option in the same page. Place the illustration near the description. Check the answer key and decide whether to record and answer. So how are we going to write directions? It's very easy. Check the test direction for each item format to be sure that it's clear for the student to understand. It's very important that students could understand directions because it's one way for them to be guided. If they don't know how to follow the directions or if they have certain questions in mind as to the directions, it's very hard for them to relate with the exam. So it is not any more reliable. Always check the assembled test items. So before reproducing the test, it's very important to proofread it first. For the test items for typographical and grammatical errors, and make necessary corrections if any. And that way we could save time and effort, in administering the exam to our students so that they will not keep on questioning. So make the key answers. How are you going to do that? Be sure to check your answer key so that the correct answer follow fairly random sequence. And analyze and improve the test items. Analysis and improvement of the test items should be done after checking, scoring, and recording of the exam or the test. So different formats of classroom assessment tools. So the type of assessment tool should always be appropriate with the objectives of the lessons. Again, this should be anchored. And Sandal River of 2016 was able to mention that there are two general types of items to use in achievement tests using paper and pencil tests. It is classified as selection type item and supply type item. So selection type or objective test item. So this is very common that we teachers are doing. So first, selection type item requires student to select the correct response from several options. This is also known as objective test item. Selection type item can be classified with either multiple choice, matching type, true or false, drop-down box, or interpretative exercises. Right now, we teachers are also into innovation in which we are also utilizing technology. There are lots of instances that teachers nowadays would somehow use different platforms in administering their exam due to the no face-to-face interaction with the students. So mostly they do it virtually, and usually they utilize Google Forms in terms of selection of type of the type of exam that they are making. Saddle River of 2016 also included that objective test item requires only one correct answer in each item. However, there are times that there are also specific questions which requires a lot of answers, and that is the SATA type, which is select all that applies. It's very common to the nursing profession in which we have to select all the answers needed just to make sure that we were able to answer the question related to the subject matter. In kinds of objective type tests, we also have multiple choice. Usually, multiple choice is the common exam. Board exams are actually administered through this type of test, which is in multiple choice type. No, is used to measure knowledge, outcome, and other types of learning outcomes such as comprehension and application. And also, multiple choice item consists of three parts. No? So it's the STEM, and then the key option, and then the correct option of alternatives. We also have general guidelines in constructing multiple choice tests. So make use present format. So first, make the test item that is practical or what is real world application to the students. Second is use diagrams or drawings when asking questions about application analysis or evaluation. And you have to present when to ask, to interpret or evaluate about quotations, present actual quotations from secondary sources like published book or newsprints or even journals could be a good help. General guidelines. Okay, hold on. Okay, general guidelines for constructing multiple choice. This is actually the continuation. So use tables, figures, or charts when asking questions to interpret. And you also have to use pictures as much as possible when students are required to apply concepts and principles. List choices or options vertically, not horizontally. Avoid trivial questions. Use only one correct answer or best format. Continuation as well with the guidelines is to use 3 to 5 options to discourage guessing. Make sure that distractors are plausible and very effective. Increase the similarity of the option to increase the difficulty of the item. Do not use none of the above options when asking for best answer, and avoid using all of the above options as well. So guidelines in constructing the STEM. The STEM should be written in question form for completion form. Do not leave the blank at the beginning or at the middle of the STEM using completion form with multiple choice type of test. The STEM should also pose the problem completely. The STEM should be clear and concise. Avoid excessive and meaningless use of words in the STEM. State the STEM in positive form and avoid grammatical clues in the correct answer. Guidelines in constructing options. So number one, there should be a correct answer in each item. List options in vertical order, not in horizontal order beneath the STEM. Arrange the options in vertical order and use capital letters and then indicate each option as A, B, C, D, or E. And no overlapping of options. Keep it independent. All options must be homogeneous in content to increase the difficulty of an item. As much as possible, the length of the option must be same or equal. Avoid using the phrase all of the above and avoid using the phrase none of the above or I don't know. So guidelines in constructing the distractors. The distractor should be plausible. The distractor should be equally popular to all examinees. Avoid using ineffective distractors. Each distractor should be chosen by at least 5% of examinees, but not more than the key answer. And revise this distractors that are over attractive to the teachers as well. So example of multiple item choice, knowledge level, the students are required only to do recall. So example, the most stable measure of central tendency is what? So A mean, B mean and median, C median, D mode. So another example of multiple choice item, it should have comprehension level and students are required to describe. So say for example, you are creating this question, which of the following items describe normal distribution? Letter A, mean is greater than median. The mean, median, and mode are equal. The score are more concentrated at the other parts of the distribution. And lastly, D, most of the scores are high. Example of multiple choice item, which is an application, sorry, which has, okay, which is an application um, level, the students are asked to apply. What is the standard deviation of the following scores of 10 students in mathematics quiz, which is 10, 13, 16, 16, 17, 19, 20, 20, 25. So is the answer letter A, 3.90, 3.95, 4.50, and D, 4.25. And number four, example of multiple choice item which has analysis level, the students are required to distinguish. So example, what is a statistical test used when you test the mean difference between pre-test and post-test? So A, analysis of variance, B, t-test, C, correlation, D, regression analysis. So there are advantages of multiple choice answer. Okay, so a multiple choice test rather. First, it measures learning outcome from the knowledge to evaluation level. Scoring is highly objective, easy, and reliable. Scores are more reliable than subject type of tests. Measurable samples of content within short span of time. Distractors can provide diagnostic information, and item analysis can reveal the difficulty of an item and can discriminate the good and poor performing students. We also have disadvantages of multiple choice tests. No? So first, it's time consuming to construct a good item. It's also difficult to find effective and plausible distractors. Sometimes scores can be influenced by the reading ability of the examiners. In some cases, there is more than just one justifiable correct answer. Number five, ineffective in assessing and problem-solving skills of the student, and not applicable when assessing the student's ability to organize and express ideas. So matching type test has two columns. Column A, which contains the description and must be placed at the left side, while column B contains the option placed on the right side. As you can see, in the example, in the left corner, you can see there that in the right corner, looking at the picture on your end with your laptop facing you, it's the answers. And in the left corner, it's more into the description of the test questions. So we also have guidelines in constructing matching type of test. So first, the description of option must be shown in images. And the description must be written at the left side and marked with column A, and the option must be written at the right side and marked it with column B to save time for the examinees. There should also be some options that descriptions or indicates of directions that each option may be used more than once to decrease the chance of guessing. And matching direction should specify the basis of matching. And you also have to avoid too many correct answers. So guidelines for matching type of tests. So add-on is when using names, always include a complete name. To avoid ambiguities, use number from the description and letter for the option to avoid confusion to the students that have reading problem. You also need to arrange the option into chronological order or alphabetical order. And the description and option must be written at the same page, and the minimum of 3 items and a maximum of 7 items for elementary level and maximum of 17 items for secondary and tertiary level. So advantages of matching type tests. So it's a forced choice test. The students are required to choose the answer, true or false, in recognition to a correct statement or incorrect statement. So actually, this is already in relation to true or false, by the way. So guidelines in constructing true or false. First, avoid writing a very long statement. Avoid trivial questions. It should contain only one idea in each item, except for statements showing the relationship between cause and effect. It can be used for establishing cause and effect, and avoid using option-based statement, and it couldn't be avoided by the statement which should be attributed to somebody. So we also have guidelines in constructing true or false tests. Add on to which is avoid using negative or double negatives, avoid specific determiners such as some, always, all, none, for they tend to appear in the statement that are false. You also have to avoid specific determiners such as some, sometimes, and may that tend to appear in the statement that are true. And the number of true items must be same with the number of false items, and avoid grammatical clues that lead to correct answers such as the article, a, and the. So we also have advantages of true or false. So it converts a lot of content in a short span of time. It is easier to be repaired compared to a multiple choice and matching type test. It's easier to score because it can be scored objectively compared to the test that depends on to the judgment of the caters. And it's also useful that when there are two alternatives only, the score is more reliable than essay test. You also have disadvantages. So disadvantages of true or false, limited only to low level knowledge, thinking skills such as knowledge and comprehension or recognition or recall of information, and high probability of guessing the correct answer. So 50% of which compared to multiple choice, which consists four options of 25%. So supply types of subject and type of item tests. So this requires students to create and supply their own answers or perform certain tasks to show mastery of knowledge and skills, and also known as constructive response tests. Constructive response tests are classified as there are two. First is short answer or completion type, and B is essay type item, which is restricted and extended response. So subjective test items, according to WISE of 2016, this requires students to organize the present, an original answer, essay test, and perform tasks to show mastery of learning. So performance-based assessment and portfolio assessment or supply a word or phrase to answer a certain question. And that is a completion of short item type of exam. So essay test is a form of subjective type of test, and it measures complex cognitive skills or process. So there are also kinds of subjective type of test items. So first, the completion type or short answer test. Short answer test. It is alternative from the assessment because the examiner needs to supply or create appropriate words, symbols, or numbers to answer a question or complete a statement. And two-way or constructing completion type of short test type test, which has question form and complete the statement form. So we also have guidelines in constructing completion type of short answers type of test. So first, the item should require single word answer. Be sure that the language used in the statement is precise and accurate in relation to subject matter being tested. Be sure to omit the keywords and do not leave the blank at the beginning of within the statement. You could also use direct questions rather than incomplete statement. And also be sure to indicate the units in which the statement requires numerical answers. And be sure the answer of the student is required to produce a factually correct. As you can see, essay items are having the ability to organize and present their original ideas. That's according to Smith of 2016. And the type of essay items could be extended response and restricted response essay. So restricted response essay questions. So restricted response usually limit both the content and the response by restricting the scope of topic to be discussed. And this is actually useful for measuring learning outcome requiring interpretation and application of data in specific area. So example of restricted response. So first, you have to describe two situations that demonstrate the application of the law of supply and demand. So do not use those examples discussed in class. And state the main difference between Vietnam War and the previous war in which the United States have participated. In that way, students will be able to consider the things that they have to elaborate as to the test item is being required. And extended response essay questions. Extended response question allows students to select information that they think is pertinent, to organize the answer in accordance with their best judgment, and to integrate and evaluate ideas as they think suitable. And Brown of 2013, they do not set limits on the length of exam content to be discussed. So examples of extended response essay questions. Compare the developments in international relations and administration of President William Clinton and the President George W. Bush, and cite when possible. And imagine you and your friend found a magic wand. Write a story about the adventure that you and your friend had with the magic wand. So type of complex outcome and related term of writing essay questions. So there are three columns as you can see in the table. It has the outcome, sample verb, and sample question. See, for example, the outcome is comparing. The verb could be used as compare, clarify, discuss. Sample questions could be describe the situation and differences between Philippine education and Singapore education system. Another very good outcome is interpreting. Some verbs that could be considered: convert, draw, estimate, and summarize. Example question: summarize briefly the content of second SONA of the present president. Third outcome is inferring. So it derives verb could be used to derive, draw, estimate, and sample questions using the facts presented that is most likely to happen when. And another outcome is applying. Verbs could be arrange, compute, describe, solve. Solve the solution set of the equation x2 plus 3x minus 24 equals 0 using factoric method. And types of complex outcome and related terms for writing essay question. Add on. Analyzing, break down, describe, differentiate lists. So example question, list and describe the characteristic of a good assessment instrument. Creating, compose, design, draw, formulate are the verbs. Example questions, formulate the hypothesis about mathematics attitude. Synthesizing, arrange, combine, design. Example questions, design a scoring guide in evaluating portfolio assessment. Generalizing, verb use, construct, develop, explain. Example question, explain the function of assessment of learning. Evaluating, verbs use, appraise, criticize, describe. Sample question, describe the strengths and weaknesses of using performance. So guideline in constructing essay test items. So first, construct an essay question used to measure complex learning outcome only. Remember to relate directly to the learning outcome to be measured. Formulate essay questions that are present and are clear to be performed. An item should be stated precisely. All students should be required to answer the same question. Number the point and time spent in answering the question and should be indicated in each item. It's also very important to specify the number of words, paragraph, or number of sentences for the answer. And the scoring system must be discussed or presented to the students. Advantage of an essay test: it's easier for us to prepare and less time consuming compared to the other paper and pencil test. It measures HOTS. It also allows students freedom to express individually in answering the given question, and students can have the chance to express their own ideas. It also reduces guessing answers compared to any other objective type of test, and it presents more realistic tasks to the student. Thus, it emphasizes on the integration and application of the different ideas. And we also have disadvantages on making your essay. So number one, it could provide an objective measure of an achievement of the student. Number two, it needs so much time to grade and prepare scoring criteria. Number three, the scores are usually not reliable, most specifically without scoring criteria. Number four, it measures limited number of content and objective. Number five, low variation of scores, and it usually encourages bluffing. So suggestions for grading essay tests. So design on the policy for dealing the incorrect, irrelevant, and illegal responses. Keep scores of the previous read items out of sight. The student should should remain anonymous while his or her paper is being graded. Read and evaluate each student's answer to the same question before grading the next question. Provide students with general grading criteria by which they will evaluate prior to the examination. You also have to use analytic scoring or holistic scoring. Answer the best question by yourself by writing the ideal answers. And this is make sure that you can develop the scoring criteria from your answer and write your comments on their papers as well. So here are my reference doc in terms of my research, and it's being applied in an APA 7th edition. So thank you everyone for listening and have a wonderful day. Hope you guys were able to gain insights based on my presentation.